back to the How I Got Greenlit podcast. We are picked up. We are in our second episode on YouTube. My name is Sam Levine, and I am joined by writer, director, and the creator of Project Greenlight, Keledjian. Alex, how are you today?
I'm good, Sam. How you doing? I notice I have sort of Marlon Brando wig hair from Superman 1, so we're continuing our Superman,
That's not actually a wig, right?
No, it's just the swoop. I remember the swoop. They the Superman had the swoop, the Christopher Reeve thing.
Absolutely.
So some smart guy thought to give Marlon's wig a swoop, like, oh, he's this kid. I love those little details that you notice like later in
My
a movie.
friend, you're hashtag blessed. Anyone watching me right now, that's the reason for the hat. I'm letting you all in on a secret here. So I have really good news for our audience. You ready to hear it? The silly comedy is back. It's back, and it's great. We both saw Naked Gun, and I saw it in a theater on like a Wednesday night by myself, and it was fantastic. And I was in this theater alone, laughing like an absolute maniac, just completely alone, and I loved it. I couldn't believe how good it was and how happy it made me. Alex, what did you think?
I thought it was great. I liked Liam Neeson. I think he's exactly where you want him to be, which is 20 years of being that character, the tough guy, and now he's making fun of it just in time because we're kind of worried that he was self-parodying himself in maybe the last movie or two, and getting into that whole Irishman, 80-year-old man getting winded, kicking a guy outside a convenience store kind of sadness. And I thought some of it was really great. I thought, that's the funny thing about those movies, the Abrams phenomenon that they sort of started. You could even call it Kentucky Fried Movie might have started it, but that joke a second or two jokes a second, rat-a-tat style, which I love. And it's almost inevitably going to be hits and misses. And when it hit really good, just like the old days. And when it missed, you were like, okay, keep coming, keep going. We got you. We're with you. I think the overall feeling I got, well, first of all, I had to check the theater like 3 different days because it was sold out. So that's a good sign. I haven't had a movie problem like that, like the way back, days. Unless you go opening weekend, right? And this was like 4th weekend. I'm like, oh, I guess comedies are back, And it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, which is like dark times, complicated times demand the opposite. Escapism only exists if it's different than your norm. Okay. So, I don't know if there's a parallel between like, well, Airplane came out during Carter's stagflation and the birth of Reaganism. I don't know, but we definitely needed a laugh. I did feel good to just like, rejoice in a dumb movie again. There's a lot to like about this movie. It's not perfect, and unfortunately, it's not as good as the original.
It's funny you bring that up. So when I was in the theater, I was completely alone. I was by myself, and I was thinking to myself, oh boy, like this movie must be bombing, right? Like no one must be seeing this.
See, I thought the other way around. Yeah.
And then after I saw the movie, I loved it. And I was like, oh man, like I wish more people were here to see this. Like I wish this thing was actually doing well. I just assumed it was bombing. And in fact, then I finally got on my phone after the movie and I saw the movie has been a critical and financial success.
Oh yeah.
Which is great. They're already talking about a sequel.
Nice.
It's funny. I didn't watch a trailer for this movie.
No.
I went in blind. I'm a huge fan of the original Naked Gun series. And when I saw the name Akiva Schaffer as the director, I was immediately hopeful because I think that Hot Rod is one of the underrated comedies of the 21st century. And I think Akiva, one of the members of the Lonely Island group and really their main director, I think he's excellent. Yeah. What did you think? Like, did you notice beforehand that he was the director?
I saw that. I like to, since we've gotten into this like trailers give it all away phase, and I've certainly Naked Gun there's not going to be a crucial plot, but I purposely didn't really educate myself beyond it's out and I want to see it. It's almost like a proven quantity. You don't need to check with anybody to want to go. But yeah, I saw his name when I watched, and I go, oh, that's the Lonely Island guy. So I thought, okay, it's going to have, and I think they're funny overall, and I think they were like a highlight of their years on SNL and kind of reinvigorated that whole brand, to be honest. And love Sandberg, just the whole like extended universe, the Isla verse. And I think that he brought their energy to it, and there's some aspects where you can kind of see their humor in it. And I'm glad that it didn't go total Lonely Island. I'm assuming that's a measure of the sort of studio control of like, this is one of their big brands that they want to bring back. Paramount's going through like a supposed renaissance. I mean, everything I've been hearing from people lately is, and in my experience, the last year or so has been really frozen over there because they're like, I think we're getting bought. I think we're getting bought. I think I'm getting fired. I think I'm getting laid off. I think I'm getting merged. Or I think our department. So nobody wanted to do anything. Now that the smoke is kind of cleared and the Ellisons are taking over, it seems like they want to get back to work in a big way. They're buying spec scripts. They're greenlighting movies again. So we'll see. Could be part of the Paramount-essence. Is that a thing? I don't know.
No, you just made it a thing, but it'll never catch on because it's way too hard to say. Something I was noticing while watching the movie is it really felt like, so I'm about the same age as Akiva Schaffer, and I loved those Naked Gun movies. And it felt like, how you said it wasn't too Lonely Island-ish, and it's because it felt like it was being made from a kid who grew up watching Lonely Island.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
This was
grew up watching Naked Gun.
I'm sorry. Yeah, excuse me. Grew up watching
Naked
Gun.
They were
correct.
influenced by Naked Gun, and that's their irreverent humor. I think so too. It's very much a loving, respectful. They're not like, we're reinventing it. They're all going to wear black leather and fuck what happened before. It's much more like they nod to it. Like he's the son of Frank Drebin, and there's a whole extended joke.
That's one of the best jokes of the whole movie. And
I'm loving this guy, Paul Michael Hauser.
He's a real actor.
He's everywhere, and I'm all for it. He's having his Pascal moment. And he can do comedy, he can do drama, he can do dramedy. He's the funny guy in a sad movie. I mean, I have not been a huge fan of, like, let's call it the last 20 years of Clint Eastwood. I think the whole thing about one take, it's like, I don't know if that's the thing you brag about. That's like saying
that's a man who needs to go to bed.
Well, it's just, I mean, I get it, but I also think, like, you don't brag about a car being made in like 14 seconds. Like, you just want it to run. You don't necessarily dine out on that, right? It's kind of like, I don't like a movie that's reviewed with, well, they didn't have much money and it shows, but good effort. It's like, fuck that. Like, when you go out in a major, well, not even a major release, if you're in a theater in a multiplex next to any other movie, that's how an audience is going to judge you. It's not going to be like, okay, we're going to bring our gold stars and give you like an attaboy, right? So like, I thought that movie that he was in, the about the bomber, the Atlanta Olympics bomber. Really, really good.
I think that movie's underrated, actually.
Terrible on the title. I think it's just called the name of the fella.
It's like Richard something.
Yeah, it's Richard. Oh, shit.
Yeah,
anyway,
it's going to kill me. I've actually seen it twice, and I like Richard Jewell. Richard Jewell.
It's called Richard. I think it's just called Richard Jewell.
Yeah.
And then, so he set his, like, knucklehead persona for us. And it almost felt like, oh, did they get the real guy, or did is this like his brother? Because he just didn't feel like he was acting. And then he was in I, Tonya, sort of doing a comedic spin on the knucklehead that
that's really his breakthrough. I think I, Tonya is really his breakthrough.
Well, that's where people are like, who is this guy? Yeah, Richard Jewell didn't really set the world on fire. I thought honestly, I thought he was deserving of some sort of nomination, just recognition for the work. Absolutely.
Because I think he's excellent in it. Something I thought was really interesting about this movie is what a perfect vehicle for someone like Pamela Anderson. Like, this is, you want to talk about someone who's having like a renaissance. Pamela Anderson is clearly having some sort of renaissance.
Yes.
And it's a type of actress like her, like a former, like, you know, like we'll say this, like a middle-aged form, like she's still beautiful, but she was a sex symbol, right? And if you remember those old Naked
She
Guns,
wasn't necessarily known for her acting so
Right.
much as like her persona or whatever. Right.
And she can't always be in these like indie darling films. Like she can't do that all the time. So I actually thought like this was the perfect kind of vehicle for an actress like her. And there's probably so many more actresses like her who can benefit from these really silly spoof comedies.
I think there's a lot of that. I would point to, I think it was last year. When was Substance? Demi Moore and in The Substance. That was like the last example of that. I think we usually do one or two a year, like, oh, she's back. And it's like, she always says, the woman of the moment always says the same thing. I never left. And they don't, and they want to work and they can work and they're, you know, of sound mind and body, and there's just no roles. And so it's not, I mean, look, I don't know the age disparity. I think maybe it's like over 10 years, but under 20 between Liam Neeson and her. Cause I was going to say, oh, they're age appropriate. And it's more like, well, they're more age appropriate than they used to be. You know, I read about Roger Moore. The reason that he retired from James Bond, or at least the quote that he gave later was, you know, they were casting women that could have been my granddaughter. And I just thought it was a bad look for the character and for me. So I let the next fella do it, you know? So I think we're starting to see a little bit of that respect as well as like the, you know, trying to be more appropriate, if not entirely, you know, on par. They look good together. Apparently they're a couple now for real.
Yes.
Liam Neeson
Yes.
and Pamela Anderson. We kind of like that. Like I was listening to Mark Maron and, you know, he's sort of got this burgeoning acting career. And he said, when I started acting, I thought everybody was friends. I thought you come to the set and it's like a club and they all know each other and da, da, da. And I quickly realized like, no, it's just a gig. And then they leave. And occasionally people like stay in touch, but mostly you're best friends for like 4 weeks. And then you never talk to this person again.
You know, Alex, it's funny. You and I were just listening to the same Jeremy Allen White episode.
Well, no, he's been saying that for years.
Yeah. Said it in the episode I was listening to.
Mm-hmm. No, whenever he talks to, here's how you can tell he respects an actor. He trots out that story.
Interesting.
And what I respect about him is he uses his podcast as an acting kind of workshop. So he'll be like, hey, actor that is a real actor and does shit that I really respect. How do you prepare? You know, and you realize like, oh, he's actually like taking notes. Like he wants to know how to be a better actor, especially since he's folding the podcast and probably going to do that full time or whatever. And I respect it. I think he's trying to be better. I think he is getting better. I think he was, you know, cast as like himself in most of these roles. And look, that's half the battle. You know, most directors say that's 75% of the job, 90% of the job of directing is just picking the right actor and letting them do the thing that they're doing. And some of them say, well, I try to cast the person that's as close to the character and they fill in the rest, you know? So I think that, and actually I'll give Pamela Anderson specific shout out. There's a musical sequence that's actually really goofy and really kind of cringy, but funny because she's fully committed to it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And something I found really interesting about this movie, you know, you said that it was not perfect. And I think it's nearly impossible for a movie like this to be close to perfect or to be perfect because it is a joke machine. Every single minute has got maybe 11 or 12 jokes in it. I mean, there are so many jokes going on from the script to like the things behind them just on the set. There is so much wordplay in the set. I mean, it's too much to even account for. But I'm so used to in the 21st century, most our comedies are really dramedies. They're not actually comedies. They're romantic comedies. They're movies with comedic elements, whether they are action comedies or romantic comedies, but they are not straight up silly comedies, which I find super interesting. And I'm happy that something is back where it only has one mission, one goal, and that is to make you laugh. There's a kind of unpretentiousness to this movie that I find really classy.
Yeah, I think pure escapism. Even I mean, I got my favorite in this kind of subgenre of just wackadoo comedy, no agenda, a bare minimum narrative even is like 30 Rock.
Yeah.
You know, they were really shoveling a lot of stuff out, really throwing everything at the wall. Kind of a good rewatch for that kind of comedy because there's so much going on. You may not catch the subtle second joke in the background, like you're saying. I also like the kind of running gags in this one. Are we spoiler safe? Are we spoiler?
We can do a couple jokes. Like, I think we want to talk about the coffees, right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I think like first of all, the thing that I was grateful for, and maybe you didn't get, was seeing it with an audience, and people were really laughing and really reacting. And every time they did that, the laugh was a little bigger, and like, oh, you know, it's like you give them a little reward for paying attention. And that's almost like they didn't do that joke in the old Naked Gun because they didn't have 700 cop shows since then, where all the SVU guys would just stand around with fucking Starbucks cups at every crime scene. So I like those little running gags. Gave you something, you know, to look forward to.
Yeah, you know, it's something you and I were talking about before we recorded this episode was how I was mentioning how the Leslie Nielsen style of comedy, which I believe is born out of Airplane. I think Airplane really kickstarts this trend. I don't know which comes first, Airplane or Police Squad, which is the Naked Gun television series.
Well, like, did you see Kentucky Fried Movie?
No, I have not seen it.
So that was their like indie film.
Okay.
And I believe so, the team.
Okay.
And it was that same, like, there wasn't even a narrative. They were just like, it was almost like an SNL or actually it was Lonely Island. It was like skits that had like a loose connection, but were just like funny bits and fake commercials and a whole lot of shit thrown at the wall. Airplane was their stab at like narrative structure, you know, and it was that original. Did you ever see that movie? There was a real movie that they parodied, but you don't know it. And if you watch it, it's the same story. And they actually had to give the guys credit afterwards, like based upon whatever. I don't think you see it in the credits, but they threw them some money. And it was basically, if you took the same script and didn't play it for comedy, you know, dun, 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 and they just kind of went with it. And Leslie Nielsen was a veteran of those movies, self-serious and like, Mrs. Johnson appears she's got food poisoning, you know. And that's why it works, is like none of the characters are in on the joke, right? Yeah. Leslie Nielsen is not laughing, you know, like he really believes in what he's saying, and there's that commitment, you know. Dramatic actors who are committed. Yeah.
I mean, everyone's playing it dramatically. That's what makes it work. So something that really fascinates me about this style of comedy is that for a long time, right, you've had Leslie Nielsen is the king of this. You've got Spy Hard, and you even have like movies like Mafia, which is Lloyd Bridges in it instead of Leslie Nielsen. Then you have all the Naked Gun movies. And then they go away, and you think they go away. But what's funny is that the people who pick up the mantle of that style of comedy are the Wayans brothers with those scary movies.
Yeah, that's where they went with it. Yeah, for like 20 years.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because a predominantly black audience and black filmmakers keep that style of comedy alive, and it's just not, you know, penetrating into like white audiences, predominantly white movie theaters. And now it's back, but I think credit should be given because these are the guys who really keep it alive. And I think it's so funny that, you know, Leslie Nielsen transitions to Damon and Marlon Wayans. Like I find that really fascinating.
Well, I think it's just a measure of that was Dimension. And so I think the Naked Gun, you know, let's call it the genre that they had going. It got kind of top heavy, and I think it got expensive. It was studio movies. They made a ton of money, and I'm sure, you know, Dracula Dead and Loving It probably cost more than like Airplane, but wasn't as good. Just if anybody saw that one, that was the horror parody. Yeah. So it was a couple things. It was diminishing returns, and I'm sure it was expense. And so along came the Wayans brothers, straight off like television, and they're young, and Dimension never pays a lot of money. So they're like, hey, we're going to do this. and it hit a nerve. It's like, okay, we spend 10, we get 30, like we'll do that every year if you want. And they're like, okay. And so, it just kicked off that trend. And I watched a few of those and they're not great. Again,
No,
it's that
they're not.
it's a quantity over quality
Right.
exercise. And I also think it was contingent on home video stuff.
Yeah.
So, we're still kind of shoveling out of the wreckage of the entertainment business was premised on you make a product that won't make its money back until 2 more media releases, but you bet on that like 18-month game of like, okay, $100 million movie, we'll make 80 in the theater, and then we'll make 50 in the video, and then we'll make 20 in the cable. And so it all works out in the end. There's no more windowing, right? So there's still a struggle, like, okay, what do we do now? So now I guess the formula is Paramount makes the new Naked Gun that will go directly to Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
Do not stop, at Go, do not collect $200, whatever. And if you want it, you got to get Paramount Plus to see it. So it'll be interesting to see the kind of walled garden approach. We're almost going back to the original. Paramount would make a movie and Paramount would own the theater that the movie played in, because all those what they called FinCEN rules have been slowly chipped away from the 30s, when they were kind of cracking down on monopolies, and Clinton sort of loosened it up, and then over the years it's just been chipped away. So now you have, the new owners of Paramount, how do I say, to use the Game of Thrones vernacular, bending the knee to an administration to make sure that their merger goes through and that there's no hiccups from the FCC at all.
Yeah.
So it's interesting times, just to give a little like backstory, but you don't see many. I mean, first of all, Dimension's long gone. So there's no real analog to that on sort of low budget. But I think after the success of this new Naked Gun, you probably will see like yet another scary movie, yet another blah, blah, blah. Cause why not? Right.
I think somewhere there are going to be comedy clubs all over LA where they're like, movies like this demand lots of writers because there's so many jokes. There are so many jokes in this movies that they're going to have to employ tons of comedians to punch jokes into these things.
They have been for years.
Right.
My buddy was a stand-up. He moved out here, and you don't know about them. I think they literally just go, hey, no credit. Here's like, a few bucks, and they're happy to do it. It's like 2 weeks, conference room, free lunch, fuck around with your friends. And, out of the 1,000 one-liners, 60 of them get in.
Yeah.
There's whole like weird writers rooms and stuff where even for, like action movies, and what they'll do is they'll be like, oh, it's a little dead here. And they'll go to the reaction shot of an actor, and then they'll go in and punch up other lines that they can fit in the pause. So let's say you and I are talking and you're cutting to my single right now, right?
Yep.
They would feed you in the looping session like 5 quips and then see like which one's like sticking or which one's best, kind of in like the Joss Whedon school of like little, hey, character as quip, so there's been that for a while. The mini writers room, the punch up room, the this and that. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. I think the more work, the better. I think all writers rooms have either gone away or drastically shrunk. I was at a Writers Guild meeting the other night, and they were saying like it used to be average of like 8 to 10 people, and now it's like 5 max. So it's a different world.
And it's good to see, like, I'm hoping that with the success of this movie, that more established stars will jump at an opportunity to do this because
to poke fun at their personas on screen.
Yeah. And it's going to help get these movies financed, right? I just feel like I've been saying this for a while, obviously not to you, but to my friends, which is I felt like the comedy has really been the romantic comedy for so many years. We have only
well,
been
the
getting
Judd
romantic
Apatow.
right.
That's
Yeah.
the guy, right? And he does writers' rooms too. He'll do punch up stuff
And
early in the process.
They're good, but it's nice to see a comedy where there's not a single dramatic element at any point in the movie.
There's not a weepy moment. No,
not
and if there
one.
is, they kind of fuck with it. I would also give props to a lot of the action movie standby character actors that we know and love and they're all taking the piss out of their sort of like bread and butter roles. Kevin Durant as the sort of main muscle guy who's doing sort of a loose rendition of the Gary Busey role from Lethal Weapon, Mr. Joshua. And then you have Danny Houston as the main bad guy. And nobody, since like the old days, nobody can like play a bad guy like that guy, Like he almost plays it like Shere Khan from the Jungle Book, if you remember that.
Yes.
Like he's kind of, hello, darling,
Danny Houston's interesting because I think he's American, but he always sounds like he has a British accent.
So he does have a British accent.
He does. Okay.
He's John Huston's son.
Right.
And I believe the mother is English or he was raised in England. Like there's a backstory to that. But yeah, he's half American.
Just to veer off a little bit, because we're talking about Danny Houston. Danny Houston is in one of my top 10 favorite movies ever, which is called The Proposition, which is an Australian Western with Guy Pearce and Ray Winstone, written by Nick Cave.
I started watching it. It's pretty dark shit.
It's grim, but it's worth a rewatch, man. It's the type of script that can only be written by someone who's never written a screenplay before, because
there's no rules.
There's no rules to it whatsoever. And
great cast. Yeah.
I've always been a fan of Danny Houston. So anytime Danny Houston gets paid, I'm for it.
I always think of, he was the best in Children of Men for me because he wasn't, I like him when he's not so diabolical that he's sort of twisting his mustache. I like when he's casually evil because he's so rich and, bloated and powerful and above us that his evil is almost like as an afterthought. And he plays that sort of, and I think the accent helps. He plays that sort of like just completely blasé villain that's not beating the table like get me their head. He's more like, these little people, we need to exterminate them quickly. But I do want to check out The Proposition. I would also argue that that's one of these phenomenons. I don't know that we'll have to come up with a catchy term, but the trailer, the studio wants you to believe it's one thing in the trailer, and then you watch the movie and it's another thing. We just watched Eeny Meeny, which was a Fox film. And so they market it. And I love car movies. So it's got a car in the poster and it's got a car in the trailer. And it's kind of like, oh, Baby Driver with a hot girl. Okay, I'm in. There was a total of like 4 minutes of like car driving in that movie. And the rest of it was all over the place tonally. Is it a fun romp heist movie? Or is it like a sad crime thriller about, Johnny can't go straight, but she wants to quit the biz and go be a family. You know what I mean? Like one of those, like was it a comedy or a drama? And, movie couldn't decide, editor couldn't decide, director couldn't decide. So the studio was like, it's a romp. Here's the poster, here's the trailer. And then you show up and it's like, oof.
I was actually, when I was at the movie to see Naked Gun, they showed a trailer for the new P.T. Anderson movie. And I love P.T. Anderson. I'm a huge fan. But you can tell with this movie, based on the teaser and then the trailer, that the studio doesn't know what it is. They don't know how to market it because the teaser and the trailer are two totally separate movies. Like they are totally not the same movie. And you can tell that the studio is having trouble marketing that film. And they're just going to, every trailer, it's going to be a new kind of movie. And then when you go see it, it'll be a P.T. Anderson movie, probably.
Which is a little bit of everything.
Movie. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's a little bit of everything. Boogie Nights has some laugh out loud comedy and some like very sad, like dramatic moments. So as much as we complain about dramedies, I think if they're fucking good, you forgive it. And if they're 1 ounce less than awesome, it's like, You know, like there's something in our DNA that we can just perceive like, oh, you're in the uncanny valley of neither fish nor fowl, so fuck you. And you know, he reserves that right. I mean, you could, speaking of John Huston, I mean, the There Will Be Blood lead performance is clearly him just doing John Huston. I'm John Huston. I'm a filmmaker, you know, and he showed up on the set doing that. And P.T. Anderson was like, okay, here we go. I'm going to build around this big performance. I mean, that's like James Cagney level big, but because the filmmaker has confidence, it's like I was listening to Jay Moore talk about stand-up, and he was like, you know, I have a new joke. I know it's funny, but I'm not quite sure it's new. And I deliver it with some hesitancy in my voice and it bombs. Then I say the same joke with confidence and it explodes.
Yeah, you have to think maybe that Akifa Schaffer alone doesn't get this made, right?
No.
They're taking a chance here in the sense that this type of movie hasn't been made in a while for mainstream audiences. And they've got Leslie Nielsen on, or not Leslie, excuse me, she's
Liam Neeson, who's an A-lister in his, yes, it is. He's an A-lister within his genre. He's not an A-lister everywhere. Certainly not a comedy. So I don't know that someone would greenlight an original Liam Neeson, Akiva Schaffer movie for over, $5 million. It'd be like, great, go make a wackadoo movie. You'd love to see it. But this is a major motion picture, big release, big studio. So yeah, it probably was just that. Like, you need a daddy. So it's, who's the comedy daddy of the moment? Well, it's either Judd Apatow or it's Seth MacFarlane. And the choice was right because Seth MacFarlane, I mean, if you look at Family Guy, it's rat-a-tat, throw 100 jokes in a minute style, not the Apatow kind of character-based, slow burn, like, some hilarity, but a little bit of heart, a little bit of this. So
if you think about Judd Apatow for a minute, it's almost like he is the first director, and I may get this wrong, but just riffing off the top of the head here, it seems like he's the first director to make romantic comedies for guys, where the target audience is men. And he's making romantic comedies. It's the same genre. It's the same plot points, which is boy meets girl, boy spends time trying to get girl to fall for him, boy gets girl to fall for him, boy has misunderstanding with girl falls out of him, boy improves himself, gets her back. And this had been the
well, that's right. I mean, you could say that is rom-coms, is though, like, meet cute initially, sparks, but then you're a Republican, you work at the bank that
more like you're a Yankees fan.
Whatever the obstacle is, like I always think of Patton Oswalt's bit, and he's like, every romantic comedy should just be called Trying to Fuck. And like, here's all the obstacles. We know they're going to be together at the end, but here's all the obstacles that we're going to create while they're trying to fuck. And you could apply that to Pretty Woman, to any romantic comedy. You could just, they're trying to fuck, and the friends don't want them to fuck, and the job doesn't want them to fuck, and the whatever doesn't want them to fuck, and then eventually they fuck. So, and I would argue that what you said made me think, yes, his movies are bromances, right? Like even 40-Year-Old Virgin was a very clear, probably one of his more structured movies, when he started making a lot of money and they were like, well, you don't have to edit. Well, you're a genius. That one like has a clean script. And I think it's because it's really a bromance of all the different archetypes of men, right? There's the Lothario, there's the stoner, there's the like guy who never got over the breakup. And he initially thinks they're cool because they've had sex. And slowly he realizes, oh, these guys are all putzes. Like, I'm actually okay,
Yeah. Something about this movie too, like in terms of its contrast with a lot of the comedies we see today, is it doesn't seem improvised at all. If you look at the Anchorman movies, the Judd Apatow movies, we know that these movies are heavily improvised. Yeah. And this movie feels very structured, very tight, very written. And I mean that as a compliment. It really feels like there's a sort of choreography to this film that doesn't exist with
because
where a bunch of guys sit on a couch.
Because there's a lot of visual jokes.
Yeah.
They have to like structure this because they're going to like drop a car off a crane. Like they have like some toys to play with. And this, this storytelling style, they always do a lot of visual gags. So you kind of have to cue those up. There might be a little bit of loosey goosey if it's just a dialogue scene, but it's usually, it's like Nice Beaver. Like it's there has to be like visual setup to get to. By the way, I guess the recent trend of having like custom popcorn bowls for the movies.
Yeah.
Do you know what the popcorn bowl is for Naked Gun?
No, they didn't offer me any.
It's a beaver with like you open the back, so it's the Nice Beaver. So they don't even say that in the movie, but you see the same beaver in the club that Danny Houston owns. It's like you kind of got to know. And there's a lot of that. Like they had Priscilla Presley in a cameo and didn't really call it out. You kind of had to be like, oh, that's Drebin's gal, and all that kind of stuff. There was a lot of nods to the previous movies that you kind of just have to know. They don't spend too much time like filling in the blank.
There's a huge amount of sophistication to the stupidity in this movie, which is something that like I really appreciate. The whole time watching this movie, I felt like it's a real class act, and then I'm also watching and thinking to myself, what a blast they must be having on set. Everyone must be having a great time and not being self-conscious. And I just imagine Akifa Shaver must have been cultivating some really comfortable environment, because the silliness in this movie, everyone's aware of it. You know what I mean? And in order to not be maybe actors are just never self-conscious, but this hasn't been done in a while.
Well, you talk about Anchorman. So there was a good run where it was Will Ferrell, and who was his director from like The Big Short?
Is it Jay Roach? Oh no, not Jay Roach.
No.
The guy he's heavily celebrated now.
Yeah, well he that's a good example of where comedy went in the last 20 years. Anchorman is one of the silliest movies like ever. Adam McKay.
Yeah.
It was Ferrell. And so Adam McKay was a writer on SNL, and Ferrell came in and they kind of bonded. That's the sort of relationships they try to foster at SNL. Speaking of like comedy, a writer that can get their voice, a performer that sort of can make your jokes better than they are on the page. And so they bonded and did some of the funniest bits there. And then they peeled off, they started a company together and had it for many years and did a lot of some of the best comedies of the last 50 years, Ricky Bobby and all that stuff.
Right.
So, and then McKay, I don't know why they split, but they kind of split. I don't know, it was amicable or somebody.
Well, have you heard the story
wife.
Behind it?
I don't know why they broke up.
The story, according to McKay, is that the Lakers show that he made about Jerry Buss he was supposed to have cast Will Ferrell, and he decided not to as Jerry Buss,
but he gave it to their boy, the sidekick.
Yep. What's his name? John C. Reilly.
Ooh, that's bad. So Will Ferrell wanted that role.
Yeah, he really wanted that role, and that's what actually busted up the relationship. Apparently.
So do you think he was like, Will? Johnny can do drama and you can't do
exactly
drama.
What I think it was.
Oh, what a kick in the slats.
Yeah, Will did not have the dramatic chops. Yeah.
And that's really too bad. So do you think he like said, I don't know, Will, maybe you could read for it? He's like, read for it? I'm Will fucking Ferrell, man.
As far as I know from what I read, McKay has spoken about this.
Well, yeah, he's a pretty outspoken guy. I met him at, see, the precursor to the Oscar hustle is you do the WGA hustle and the DGA hustle. So they hosted a screening for what was that?
This Is the End, or not? This Is the End. The one where the world's about to fall.
What was the vice president? Dick. Vice is it called?
Yeah. No, not Vice. Dick. Vice. Dick's actually another good comedy.
Yeah, no.
But Vice
with Christian Bale film. Yeah. Which again, pretty. Like some good comedy in there, like sprinkled in. I feel like Other Guys was the inflection point, right?
Okay.
There was famously, if you watch and I had just rewatched it, and it's fucking funny as shit. Mm-hmm. But you see that he's really zeroing in on like the 1% sort of attacks that have become like a a hallmark of his tone and sort of the choices that he makes. And so the end credit sequence is an animated explanation of the housing explosion of '07 or whatever, or '08, and an indictment of the whole system. And then I love The Big Short. And I think he got a really interesting balance there where when it's funny, it's fucking funny. I have rewatched Gosling go to town on that role.
Yeah.
And some of those actors just go to fucking town on those monologues or whatever. And you're genuinely laughing your ass up. But then you finish and you go, oh, what he's saying is absolutely accurate, right? So that's a real skill. And you could argue like McKay has found his niche, right? Because all his films now follow that platform, right? The Vice thing, This Is the End thing, and to varying degrees, it's a tough road.
It's not This Is the End. Excuse me. It's Is it called Don't Look Up?
Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
This Is the End was the one. That's a wacky,
which is actually a pretty funny movie.
That's a good one, but that's like more like everything in the kitchen sink tone, right? I feel like the other guys into Big Short was the end of the like big budget, big star comedy. And somebody, who was I listening to? They were also lamenting this subject, and they said the reason. Oh, it was Ben Stiller. Okay. He was saying because he's on Severance, right? And of course, Marin was like, "Where's the fucking Tropic Thunders, dude?" And the joke with Tropic Thunder is like, could he make that movie today? Could Downey play? You know what I mean?
No,
so it's like you can't really get it. And he said, he's like, look, I mean, I can't say either way, but a lot of people say I couldn't do that movie today. So that the answer is they don't let me. And the dodgeball, and he was saying, in order to justify like a decent budget, you need a big star.
Yeah.
In order to get a big star, you need somebody with a recognizable name. The only people with recognizable names now are Jim Carrey, Will Ferrell, and people that are 50 plus.
Yeah.
Because there was no farm team for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
There was no youth comedy that was like, oh no, this ain't your mama's comedy, and people exploded out of it, i.e. like American Pie, let's say, right?
Yeah.
So no comedy, comedy desert in film for 10 to 20 years means you have no burgeoning talent that has enough recognition to warrant a big movie.
Yeah.
Right. To justify the budget. So then, okay, Jim Carrey's semi-retired. Will Ferrell, sure. But like now he's got to play like the father of the bride in that terrible fucking Reese Witherspoon movie, like he can't be Frank the Tank. He's fucking, I don't know, 60. I mean, he's not that old, but I'm just saying he's not going to appeal to an 18-year-old dude that wants to see dick jokes or whatever. So it's comedy, but it's got to be of a certain caliber, or maybe he's the like side dude, like with my plums, like in fucking Eastbound and Down or whatever, which is great.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I
absolutely.
thought that was a pretty astute like dissection of it, is we don't have the talent. We don't have a Vince Vaughn that's like 35 and like a good looking guy, but has some good rap and blah, 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 blah. Like where are they? And Gosling is funny.
Yes.
Like he kind of kept Fall Guy in, the good category for me. It was just kind of a loosey goosey. I thought he was great. I thought their relationship was great, but overall, like if he wasn't in it, it would have been a dud.
Yeah.
He stole The Big Short. Like he can do comedy like nobody's business. Even like this fucking Beavis and Butthead thing he did on SNL.
Yeah.
So like there's very few of those guys. And I don't know if he'd want to do an outright like just fucking comedy with like flying
that
chickens.
leads me to a point I want to make, actually. I said earlier, that the silly comedy hasn't been around in a while. And that's not true, because I'm realizing the Will Ferrell movies are all silly. They don't have dramatic elements in them. And I'm realizing...
But they have a story.
Right, correct.
They have a very clear story.
They do. But my point is this. I realize Will Ferrell is a genre unto himself. Jim Carrey is a genre unto
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
However, anyone really can be a part of this Naked Gun style of comedy,
I think
including Will
so.
Ferrell and Jim Carrey. I think these guys can also. Do you
I
think
don't
they
know
could
if
maybe tailor it a little bit?
I think that the magic of Naked Gun and this style of humor is that you get dramatic actors who have a known screen persona, and you ask them to be in a drama, and the comedy exists around them. They never wink at the camera, they never pause for a laugh line. They are in a drama, and the filmmaker will determine, what, if there's going to be literal shit hitting fan behind them, right? Like, think of all the characters in Airplane. It looks like I picked a bad week to give up drinking. Like, that guy's selling that line not like a fart joke. He's selling it like he's in a life or death situation, and he really did pick a bad week to give up, smoking crack or whatever. And so, what I would want to see is Sylvester Stallone in a parody boxing movie.
Yeah.
I would want to see The Sacred Cow. I mean, it's the Sacred Cow.
That's actually
thing,
a really good point. I actually I retract my point. I think you're right. You need heavyweight dramatic actors in these roles. If you take,
and almost if they've never done a comedy before, and they're like, the director can say, just trust me.
Yeah.
Because in the making of Airplane, I believe that there was some of the actors that were going for it. They were like, I think the story I remember was Airplane 2. They had William Shatner as sort of like the flight commander on the moon or whatever.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm in a comedy,
Right.
wink, nod.
Yeah.
And they were like, Bill, yes. Here's the thing. We need you to believe that you're really Commander Zoom and you're on the moon and this thing is going to crash. The comedy will come from the disparity between your level of engagement with what the tone of the rest of the movie around you is. And he's like, okay. And they kind of had to keep like nudging him. You hear that a lot, dramatic act, like anything. Rock stars want to be actors want to be rock stars. Dramatic actors want to be comedy actors or comedians want to be dramatic actors. Like we said last week, we pursue that which retreats. Like we want it all. And casting Will Ferrell or Jim Carrey in a Naked Gun movie is like chocolate on top of your maple syrup. It's just too much.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that's actually a good point to end it here, end the episode. We're really getting towards an hour, and it's one of these things where I couldn't be happier to be talking about a good Naked Gun, right? I would have been so bummed.
Like,
yeah, I would have been so bummed to be talking about a bad Naked Gun movie.
No, and look, I think trolling is a young man's game. I don't, the more stuff I make, the more, hard work it takes to make any show, any movie. I don't give them shit. I just don't shit on anything anymore. I see what they were going for. Right. I respect it. Like, even this movie I mentioned, Eeny Meeny, like, my girlfriend was like, well, what do you think? And I go, there was 4 minutes of car racing and 100 minutes of like bad drama. And she's like, well, what does that mean? I said, do you know how expensive car chases are? Because I tried to do a low budget car movie a couple of years ago, and everyone's like, we love the script, but gosh, there's a lot of cars. I'm like, it's a car movie. And they're like, okay, well, you can't do it for this amount of money then, So what I said was, I feel their pain. Right. Because it's like the studio put all the car chases in the trailer. You come in wanting some like Fast and Furious, and you got, slow and kind of less furious.
Well, anyways, everybody, thank you for listening and watching the How I Got Greenlit podcast. I am Sam Levine. I am joined by Alex Keledjian. We are going to be on every Thursday, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, however you get them, as well as on YouTube. You can search for How I Got Greenlit, or you can find us at Next Chapter Podcasts on YouTube on their podcast page. Alex, once again, thank you so much for being a part of this, and I look forward to next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fun. I'm really digging the new setup, and I hope people enjoy the video of our punums.
Right on. See ya.
Bye.